6th grade Larry was not the sharpest tool in the shed, and he brought a pocket knife to school. The first half of 7th grade, I went to like a juvie school. Go do your regular classwork, and then you have community service.
We are recording.
All right. Is that it?
I don't want to. I'm sleeping.
I want to go to bed.
You didn't tell me it'd be this late. I thought we were going to win the afternoon.
It's called Win the Night. What do you want?
Larry, what a special moment. What a special gift it is to see you and to have you spend the night. What a gift that is to have you. Larry, a long time, I should say, friend of mine from high school, and then also in the Marine Corps because he doesn't have any good ideas. And he is now here as another bad idea. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Drove all the way out from West Virginia.
Correct.
You crazy person.
Yeah, 8-hour drive. It's nothing crazy.
I guess 8 hours of not so bad traffic might be decent. How was the traffic?
Yeah, I mean, the traffic was fine up until I got into Indiana. That's when the traffic started to pick up because nobody knows how to drive in Indiana, unfortunately.
Ooh.
Did I say that out loud?
Uh-oh.
Sorry. Anyway.
Sorry, Indiana fans.
Super sorry.
Lost you.
Yeah.
But it's we've been trying to plan this for a long time.
Yes.
This get together, and I have been also very busy, and so it's been very difficult to align. And it just so happens, funny story. You did not anticipate that we were also going to be doing participating in Jake's wedding the very same weekend that you were like, hey, does this day work?
Yeah.
Or like, it actually works up terribly well.
Yeah.
Because it lines up with the wedding, and we're also it's cool because then you'll get to kind of see because I was also going to plan a little video for Jake, just a little gift to give him for his wedding.
Yeah.
And you'll get to see firsthand the behind the scenes of all the filming. You've always been a part of those comedy sketches from back in the day. You got to participate in some of those.
Yeah.
And so you've been around. You've seen some of the work we've done, but it has evolved, and we've been able to turn it into something that not only we both love, but something that continues to evolve. And we are working on now, going on 2+ years now.
Yeah.
So since 2023. So yeah, 2 years this year.
It's pretty
anyway,
exciting.
Why don't you introduce yourself to people and let them know what you're all about?
Sure. As we've said before, my name is Larry, or Lawrence if I'm in trouble. Hi, Mom. I'm originally from Illinois. I went to Oak Forest High School with Josh here, and I also went into the Marine Corps because of him. He kind of inspired me to chase that dream to obtain the title of Marine. So I thank him for helping me in that endeavor. But yeah, I now live in West Virginia with my fiance, Julia. Hi, honey. And yeah, I'm
sorry we pulled him away from you.
That's okay.
We'll return him shortly.
I actually texted her right before we started, and she's like, I'm going to go to bed.
Well, good. At least, we got in pretty late. We've had a pretty packed day today, between you driving here and me having a full day of work, and then getting to see a buddy of mine and two buddies of mine, and close to the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always good when we get to have that, talk about old memories, and I think those are important conversations. A lot of times people talk about, and I'm going to go into this, hopefully I don't go into this 1 hour long chat where you don't talk and I just talk for the entire interview. But I'll try to make it short. But there's and
then I interrupted him.
Yeah. And then he never finished it because I cut him off. Oh, maybe
sad.
Next time. There's this, I think there's something special about the little things. And I've heard people say it before, but it really is like, when you look back, you don't know that those little memories are going to mean so much until after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you become aware of it, that's what you oftentimes look back on just the little funny stories, the little, hey, do you remember this little thing that happened? And back then, maybe it wasn't such a, like, obviously because they hadn't, the memory hadn't had time to, I guess, become special.
Right.
And so a lot of times we overlook those little things, and it's like, let's just get through that because I want to get to the final, the I guess, for lack of a better term, like the final stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just want to get to the end
Right.
of the journey. And then you look back, and everybody talks about people who've gone through big career changes, big life changes. They go that actually the journey there is the part that most people end up like missing.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're there and you're like, oh, well, I didn't enjoy the little things.
Yeah.
And so those things that we get with, we got to see Carl, which you see his quote there. Hopefully, if that phone records well. But if that, well, you've seen it. That quote means a lot to me. And, our buddy Carl is, he's going through a lot right now. And so, it's those little things that you just never know will mean a lot. And so you just treasure them no matter what.
Absolutely.
And so we got to do that today.
Yeah.
So that was really cool that you were here to participate in that. And thank you for saying that I in some way have inspired you. I definitely, sometimes I don't really think I do that.
No, you have a big impact on people around you, man.
I appreciate it. I think that, let me just take that in for a second. I have a bad habit of just trying to breeze past those things.
It's okay.
But yeah, I think that I don't really realize it because I am so focused on the next task.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I go, I'm just gonna, what's this guy doing? Like, when I talk to friends that I haven't talked to in a while,
Mm-hmm.
like, I need to plan seeing this person. And that's really what goes on.
Yeah.
Is I just want to do this next to make sure like this person's good and this person's good and still taking care of me. That's the part that I'm working on, right?
Yeah.
Is the making sure I'm good first.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go and you reach out. But then it's also important to take in like the things like, hey, this is doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. I want to get from your perspective.
Sure.
What it was like for you, because of course there's a lot of things that I'm sure you're grateful for, but there's also things that I know I didn't do super well, or that in hindsight we laugh about and we go, ha ha, ha, you remember that thing? And so I just want to know from your perspective, what is your honest review when you look back on our friendship, on going through the Marine Corps? What was that experience like for you?
I mean, looking back, we really developed a good like tenure between us in high school, working on skits with, Jacob, and, just having mutual interest in, the metal scene and kind of just art in general. And then we kind of fell out for a while after graduation. We became adults, supposedly.
As they say.
Yeah. And we kind of fell out for about 2 years. And I really just needed to look for direction. And, there was no coincidence at that point.
Right.
You were in the right place at the right time. And you were that connection to get into the Marine Corps and set sail. I mean, looking back, I think our friendship is kind of like this ebb and flow type of situation where when we do come back together, we never left,
right?
Essentially. I mean, like right now, I think the last time I saw you was, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. And even then, like it feels like nothing's changed, and but in like a good way,
Right.
you know, not like, oh, things are stagnant. No, it's like, what's up, man? How you been?
Right.
So having that kind of friendship, it feels a lot more special in that sense. So you don't really get that with a lot of people.
I have to say that the regret that I obviously have is that there was a period of time where 5 and 6 years of like not seeing each other is a long time, especially for the friendship that we had before you had moved. And I think that because we were roommates at some point.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of where our bond really grew because we were close before. When you said you wanted to be a Marine, like you told Carl first.
Yes.
And then he told me, and we just talked about it literally like a couple hours ago with Carl about that was like you wanting to be a Marine was what created the bond between me and Carl because that existed before. Our friendship existed before, but not the bond that we have today. That was created from, hey, he needs our help.
Yeah.
And we know enough to help him get to where he needs to go. And so we became a team at that moment. And then we were fortunate enough that Anthony came along, and then it was all three of us. And that became like the dynamic, what is it? Quadruple.
Yeah.
And it was, and then there were four. We always say and then there were, when you came along, and then there were three.
Yeah.
And then Anthony came back, and then it was like, and then there were four.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. It was unfortunate that we didn't get more time as that group because life happened to all of us, and we went different routes for a while. And so the regret that I have is just that it went that long, and just little things, and it's really just me in a lot of ways, where when I don't hear from people, at least the way it used to be, and something that I have been adamant about addressing is that I don't take it personally. Because I have, and that was one of the things where I was like, you know, why are you not talking to me?
Yeah.
And so the regret that I have is that I use that as fuel to not do the thing that I know I wanted to do, which was to talk to you and reach out and have a friendship,
right?
To have a long-term friendship. And I was so dependent on, I need the other person to put the same work, the level of energy that I am. And that's completely, I don't control other people. If I want to talk to you, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And that is the invitation. I don't know what you have going on in your life for me to be like, well, he should, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I can't speculate. And that's been the regret that I have. So I think that it's only appropriate that while I have you here, that I apologize for that. Because I do think that I was, I could have spent that energy that I used on, like, why aren't you talking to me, to just reach out and go, how are you doing? Because I don't know, I have no idea other than when we just started catching up, and I got more insight on, okay, yeah, like it wasn't like, it's not like you were just having fun while we weren't talking. Like it wasn't like you were just like having a blast and being like, yeah, well. Yeah, forget that, dude. Like,
right.
it wasn't that at all. And so, in order for me to have known, I could have at least asked, you know.
And that's fair. I mean, in my eyes, it's also a two-way street where, you know, I could have reached out to you. So, I mean, I accept your apology, but also, I'm sorry that I never reached out to you, man. Because that's a lot of time to pass and just not hear from one another to see how the other one's doing. But
you know, here we are now, and I think that's the end goal, is that we have today, and tomorrow we don't know until we're there, and so why worry about it now?
That's
like,
true.
so we're here and we're able to chat now. Same thing. It's the same thing that Carl and I talk about a lot is we're here right now, and what is for tomorrow will be anyway.
Yeah.
And so just let's not worry about it twice. You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about it twice. We will deal with that. We will cross that bridge when we get there. But again, it's don't miss the right nows, right? The little moments that we go back and we're like, oh, that was a really good experience, a really good memory. And if we just cherish it while we're doing it, while we're having that experience, then we can look back on it and not regret and be like, yeah, this was a lot of fun, and be able to speak on it without regret. Yeah. And that's all we can do.
I agree.
So moving forward, talk about, we've chatted a little bit, but I want to know how you're doing. What have you been up to? There's a lot to fill in for 5 years.
I'll be here for a while, folks.
Let's start with where we were right as you left.
So right when I left, we were still living in Midlothian.
Yep.
When we were roommates, and I had moved into Oak Forest with my ex at the time. I lived with her. Do you remember the LeClaire apartments in Oak Forest?
I believe so.
They're by the train tracks.
But before we get to that, I do think it's important we set the precedence that when you became a Marine, you and I both went through reserves, and so we got to come back.
Correct.
And
yes.
so we got to come back after our training and checked into our units.
Yes.
And that's how we moved in together, because we were both still in the Marine Corps when we moved in as roommates. And so we had that and to bond over, and then our civilian work life. And so, and then we moved in together. So go
yeah.
for it.
And to give a little bit more context, I gave him the job at Dish, and
That's true.
He flourished into a manager. I left shortly after on bad terms, unfortunately, but that's life. Anywho, fast forward back to Oak Forest. I lived there for about a year with her, and then we moved to the Tinley Park House with myself, my good friend Zach, and his good friend, who's also my good friend Avery, and our buddy John. And we were there for about, I want to say 2 years, somewhere around that line, maybe 2-3 years. Because I don't remember what year I left the Midlothian house.
It had to have been maybe it was pre COVID.
It was pre-COVID.
So it would have been either late 2019,
yeah,
or early 2020.
I think it was late 2019. And I think about it, because I started working at Speedway in the middle of the pandemic, and that was not fun, to say the least.
Yeah.
Because at first we didn't even wear masks. There was no mandate for us, so we were just kind of freeballing it. But anywho, I lived in the Tinley Park House for about 2 or 3 years, and then finally in October of 2022, myself and my now fiance Julia decided to move to West Virginia, in Weirton, where my good buddy Justin lives, and he's been a friend for a few years now, and we met online over Discord, and that was really just like this gateway of connection, because I knew Zach knew Julia, and Zach also knew Avery, and then Avery knew all these other people from Discord. Now there's this whole different community of friends they're all over the States, and yeah, but then there for this will be my 3rd year in West Virginia. So yeah,
how do you like it? Let's talk about the community. Let's talk about the are the people
I love it.
Kinder, meaner? What's the review?
I mean, honestly, like a 4.5 out of 5.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you've been there a while, so
I have been there a while, and the main reason I really moved is because I wanted to get away from city life and dealing with long commutes, and then dealing with people in Chicago, and they're assholes, to put it lightly. and I just wanted to live a quieter lifestyle, and that's exactly what I was looking for. So there's less populace. I think there's only like maybe 2 million people that live in the entire state of West Virginia. So it's definitely a lot quieter. A lot more easygoing. The community, like the local community there, is primarily veterans, and it's a lot of the older generation veterans, like Vietnam and some Korea War. But you have newer generation veterans there too. But aside from that community, the Discord community that I mentioned before really helped in terms of these new friendships that I've made over the years. And my buddy Justin that convinced us to move to West Virginia. He's there. My buddy Cezio. He's a Navy doc, actually. You got to meet him sometime, man.
Gotta love docs, man.
You really do. And he is, I think he's HM2 before he left. He was supposed to be HM1. But he got medically discharged.
Call them devil dolphins.
Yeah. They'd be swimming.
The thing about docs, just to sidetrack, the thing about docs is that they're around, like they're attached to Marines. So in a lot of ways, those guys have every right to, I don't know if calling themselves Marines, but I mean, they're kind of, at some point, they kind of just become part of the group. Like they're just part of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also, I don't know, obviously I never really got to experience like what they're like in combat, but I've heard nothing but great stories about how they step up and how they have the lives of Marines in their hands. So how could you not see them as Marines?
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't know. That's why that's why they're so like cherished in platoons. Like when you do get a doc, like they become like your best friends.
Yeah.
So anyway,
but yeah, and in terms of like the local community, aside from the veterans, the people are generally pretty nice. Although it's not to be like political, it is a very like super right wing state, which does have some bad connotations to it, but it really isn't. Everyone's really, really nice out there. It's like,
is there an accent over there?
You would think so. So like the northern part of West Virginia, not so much, but when you start getting more and more south, you get that more Appalachian accent getting in there.
Like a twang?
Yeah, there's a twang to it, and they call them mountain billies. So little
interesting.
A little bit of Billy, little bit of mountain in there.
So let's talk about what it was like growing up for you. What was childhood Larry doing?
Childhood Larry was a hermit.
Let's talk about it.
That's the best way I can explain it in short. But the long answer was I didn't like people, man. For a really long time, I felt like an outcast for most of my childhood growing up until middle school, honestly. And meeting you guys in middle school actually like helped me kind of get through it.
I was like, we were really cool, like for a short period of time, and then you like disappeared.
Yes.
and then I remember asking people like, what happened?
And nobody knew.
And then like nobody knew until you told me. Like
yeah.
you came back and then you explained. You can tell that story if you want. It's up to you.
Totally. So check this out. 6th grade Larry was not the sharpest tool in the shed, and he brought a pocket knife to school. Oh no. Anyway, somebody snitched on me. I'm gonna use that term because that's what it felt like. And I got brought into the principal's office, and they said, "You're on temporary expulsion." And I went, "Is that just a suspension?" And they're like, "Don't ask questions." I'm like, okay. And for the entire 7th grade, no, I'm sorry, the first half of 7th grade, I went to what was called like a not a rehabilitation school, but like what's that called? Like a juvie school,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. And you go there, you have a uniform, and you have to go through a metal detector to make sure you don't have any guns, like no weapons on you. And then you go do your regular classwork, and then you have community service on top of it. So it was a really kind of a defining experience for me personally, because like I was able to like give back to the community. I was able to learn like how hardship works with other children, even though I had no previous hardship growing up as a child. I just was in a really, lack of a better term, shitty situation. So it was definitely a lot to learn from it.
How did your parents take that?
Oh, my mom was devastated. If anybody's got an Italian mother out there, you understand right off the bat. She fell to the floor and fainted, type of deal. Not really. Sorry, Mom.
Just making stuff up around here.
Hey, gotta exaggerate a little bit. Gotta keep them entertained.
Fair.
But no, she was really upset about it. She thought I was like, I don't know, gonna start getting into gangs and stuff like that. But no, not really. I got along with the kids at the juvie school, and I learned their backstories and like what led them to get into the juvie school for their circumstances. And most of them were pretty down to earth. Some of them had mental health issues.
But you're gonna get all walks of life there.
Exactly. It's all walks of life. Everybody has something to offer to teach you about their circumstances and get some street knowledge.
What do you think? How was that experience for you? As a kid, do you remember any of the feelings you had when they were like, you're gonna get expelled? Were you like scared? Were you like more so just upset? Like what?
I think it was probably like genuine fear, because I didn't really know what was going to happen at that point. I was like, oh, okay. This seems a little extreme. So I think I was flabbergasted at first, and then I was like, okay, well, if that's what happens, that's what happens. It is what it is. And I just kind of just went with the motions for the most part. And then when I got there is when I realized, like, oh, that's what this is. Okay. They think I'm a little,
right.
So, but
how long were you there?
Just the first half of 7th grade, because they saw I was doing good. My grades were good. I was doing good in community service. I didn't have any outbursts of like, rage or acts of violence, anything like that. I'm a very well-mannered person all around. So they decided, there's no reason for him to be here. He just was in a bad spot, at the wrong spot.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, that guy. So.
And so then they decide that you were good to go back, and then how does that happen? What goes on?
Basically, I think they had like an evaluation system that they didn't really like disclose about. But like once that first half was done, they were like, "Well, how do you feel about going back?" And I was like, "I feel fine about it. I could have went back on the first day. Like, how do y'all think of me?" And they said, "We don't think you necessarily belong here anymore. We think you should go back to regular school." And that's what they told my parents. And then I came back to Jack Hilly, and everybody's like, "Where did you go?"
and so like, but when you come back, and I don't know if you were, I'm sure your mom mostly dealt with all this stuff, but do you remember if they questioned anything like about wanting to come back? There wasn't a time limit?
I don't think there was a time limit, from what I can remember. I think it just kind of really depended on like my behavior. Once I got there, if I had shown bad behavior, then obviously my time would have been extended, and I could have even went into the next year if I had gotten worse. But since I was on good behavior, they're like, "Yeah, you don't need to be here." So
right.
It's kind of similar to prison system,
like juvie.
Yeah, like actual juvie or even regular prison system.
Interesting.
So
yeah, okay, and so that experience happens. You come back, and What is it like in your home? How would you describe your relationship with your parents growing up?
Growing up, my relationship with my mom is really close. My stepdad is still close, but his profession was a truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
So he was gone for 4 days out of the week and come home for 3 most of the time, sometimes five days, and then come home for 2. And for the most part, when he came back from work, he was resting.
Mm-hmm.
So my relationship with my dad is, it's kind of 50-50, and maybe more 75-25, who's counting? But I do love him. He's been a good father role model to me, because my biological father, he left the picture right about when I turned like 2 or 3, so I've never actually met the man.
Do you ever plan to?
I did when I turned 18, and then he did not reciprocate when I turned 18, so I was very upset about it. And I was like, okay, well, if you don't want to do it when I'm an adult, then why am I going to do it later? So
what did he say?
He basically was like, he kind of just like went radio silent, because my method of communication to him was through a half sister, and she basically told me, yeah, he would like to see you, but he doesn't know if he can. I was like, oh, well,
what does that mean?
Literally, like, what does that mean? And I never got an explanation. I was like, well, if he doesn't have an explanation for me, then I'm not gonna do the work to go see him.
Sure.
He's the one that made me.
Right.
You should take some time to come see me as a person, and not as little toddler me, from what you remember. And that's kind of where I left off. I don't speak to that half sister anymore, because she had bad blood for my actual sister and my mom. So that basically washed it
right
down the wayside.
And then since then,
I haven't
contact.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it. I don't plan on meeting him. I probably shouldn't say this, but yeah, you should.
You don't really care much what happens to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry that happened.
That's okay. That's life.
That's never the thing you want. Especially when you have a biological parent. And I always wanted to know, because I had a stepdad as well, and my relationship with him wasn't good. And that's actually what made me go want to talk to my dad. Was like, basically, like, I'm not gonna ever get what I'm looking for here. Like, that's what it was for me. Where it's like, I understand that I am not gonna be accepted as like a son.
Yeah.
And so why am I going to put more energy into this?
Right.
And I'm going to go look for a father that does accept me. And so that was my motivation. And I always wondered, would I have looked for my biological father as an adult if I had a good relationship with him? And so with you had I don't know, you said you had a pretty decent relationship with your stepdad, right?
Yeah.
And what drove you to? What do you think it was about your biological dad to like want to at least see?
I think it was just the curiosity of it, because all I had in terms of like a visual representation of him, at the very least, was like a picture, and I saw that like more than 15 years ago at this point. I don't even know where that picture is anymore. It's probably somewhere in my mom's house, if I had to guess. And that was the only idea I had of him. And from what my mom told me, in her words, he's a weirdo. So, he did some weird stuff that I can't say legally.
Right. Okay.
And they fell apart. They didn't work out after a while after I was born, and sometimes that's just how a marriage goes.
Yeah, that's true. And so then when you're growing up, you had your older sister, right? And
yeah,
but like how far apart are you guys in age?
Me and Teresa are 14 years apart.
Okay, so that probably had a I don't know. I grew up with my brother, who was a year and 9 months older than me, and so we were pretty close in age. And so there was a lot of things that we were kind of both going through similar times. 14 years is a big chunk of time in between.
Yeah.
Did it feel like you were a lone child in some ways?
Yeah, because she left with her first husband, who was also in the military, and they lived in Seattle. Unlike me.
Side story really quick.
Yeah,
I have to tell it.
You have to tell it.
So I was so convinced, Carl and I were so convinced that you lived in Washington, that we had planned a whole road trip to go see you in Washington.
Yeah.
And planned all the places we were going to stop. By the way, we were going to visit every Denny's possible at every state on our way there, right? Once we plan that route, we're like, all right, so we're going to find a place. We're going to find a Airbnb near wherever he lives. Pretty sure he's near Seattle, but maybe we ask him. And initially I was like, no, he's nearby. We don't need to ask him. We'll just surprise him.
Full of confidence.
Full of confidence. And then eventually I get convinced to reach out and go, how close do you live near Seattle? I didn't even ask you, like, do you live in Washington?
Yeah.
How close to Seattle do you live?
I was like, West Virginia.
West Virginia. like Carl looked at me and I was like, we were really about to go to Washington to see this guy. And then him go, I'm in West Virginia. And then we're there and we're like, oh. And then Carl, in fact, was so upset that you weren't in Washington because he wanted to go see the ocean coast.
Yeah.
That he found, when you said it was like, no, I'm in West Virginia, he looked it up and purposefully looked for a dump, like just like an empty lot
with a pile
and he
of
sent
rubble.
he sent it to me in a text. He's like, I hate it, I don't want to go. Just so that we won't have to take the road trip over there. He's like, he can come visit us.
Yeah. Like, okay.
I hate it there.
You've never even been there.
Exactly. But anyway, that's the story of how I was so convinced he was in Washington. I didn't bother asking if he was in Washington. How close to Seattle?
Full credit to him for having that much confidence in that.
Yeah, he definitely was very confident about it. So I can't blame him for that. Anyway, we were talking about your growing up with your sister, age difference.
Yeah, so 14 years. She went to Seattle after she married her first husband, and she didn't come back until their divorce in 2000 and I want to say six or seven, around there. And she started living with my mom again.
How young did she get married?
Well, I was around, I think 5 or 6, maybe even before that. I think it was about maybe 5 or 6 when she got married the first time. So she would have been.
Oh, you were 5 and.
Yes,
dude. I thought you were saying she was 5 and 6.
Oh no, sorry.
Wait.
I was 5 or 6.
Okay.
I think it was about 5 or 6 years old when she got married. So she would have been like 19 or 20. And he was enlisted.
Wow, very young. Sounds like military marriage.
Yeah, and I mean they had it good in Seattle. They actually had officer housing because at the time.
What branch?
Navy.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the time, at the base, the enlisted side was undergoing construction, and the only things that were available were the officer housing. And they're like, "Well, we're married, so we kind of need housing." They're like, "Yeah, just take the officer one."
Nice.
So they got pretty lucky there. I don't remember why they got divorced off the top of my head. I don't think I've ever asked, honestly. Right. Well, no, it's on my to-do list. But then, yeah, she came back to live with mom and me in the Oak Forest house, and then she met her second husband, Matthias, and she's got 2 kids. I got a niece and a nephew. So
I have a very unique memory of of your nephew specifically.
Okay.
And I still to this day quote him. Randomly, I'll talk about my how he says car keys, or how he used to say Jargies.
Jargies. Yeah.
And I'll randomly ask Anthony, "Where are my Jargies?" And it's every time I think about how he used to say that with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, he does have a speech impediment, and he's actually gone to speech therapy for a while now. But yeah, he has said some funny things.
he's very interesting. He has a very what's the word? Contagious energy.
He does, yeah, and like he does football, he does baseball. He does a lot of sports right now, so he has a lot of like output for that energy, thankfully, and so much Fortnite, too much Fortnite,
Too much.
He's pretty good at it.
How old is he now?
Let's see.
Last time I saw him, he was like 6, 7.
Yeah, so he's in middle school right now.
Oh boy,
should be 6th grade. So I think 12, 13. I'm really bad with birthdays. Off the cuff. So I know he's a New Year, Christmas Eve baby. I just don't remember what year. And Bella, my niece, she was born in September.
How old is she now? She's older.
She is older. They're apart by 2 years, so she should be 15.
Oh dear God.
Yeah. So yeah, she's preteen.
We are old.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? Anthony and I talk about this constantly. We are almost 30 years old.
We are almost 30 years old. I turned 30 this year in November.
No, you don't.
What do you mean?
I turned 29 this year. How can you be 30?
I was born in 95.
How did you make it? How did you make it to this class?
I don't know. I just got here.
It's my first day. Yeah. Sorry, they didn't tell me the rules.
I just kind of showed up.
I skipped the tutorial.
Yeah,
nobody taught me about
"Get me
carb. But wow, you're actually going to be 30 this year?
I am going to be 30 this year. So,
oh no.
Yeah. I'm going to play that Bo Burnham song from Inside. If any Bo Burnham fans are watching your podcast, you know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not one of them.
If you get a chance, it's on Netflix. It's really great. It's super. He did it during the pandemic. So it's.
You have to send me a link so I remember to see it.
Yeah, I got you, man.
So then, God, this is almost 30. She's 15. Jesus. Yeah. That's time flies, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
What is your relationship like with them now? Because you guys obviously used to see them a lot more before, right?
Yeah, now that I live out of state, the amount of time I spend with them is a little bit more cherished because I'm out of state. So
right.
Around the holidays and just this past weekend when I came out for that other event, I actually stayed with my sister for a night and saw the kids and got caught up with what they're doing.
Right.
Bella's in band, so she plays the flute. She's pretty good at it. Definitely taking some inspiration from her uncle. Yeah.
Are you the only musician in the immediate family?
In the immediate family, technically yes, because my mom is a good singer, but she never pursued any musician professional avenues. As far as my biological father, Marty, I don't believe he was a musician. As far as I actually don't know what his occupation was. I've never asked. Apparently, he had a good singing voice too. So, hey, genetics are really great.
It just so happened that you decided to develop it more.
Yeah. I didn't start developing a singing voice until probably I want to say 12 or 13. Because we used to have karaoke parties, which I don't know. Did you ever come to any of those?
I went to one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a staple in our family,
Yeah.
and my mom would always like host them. Sometimes my aunt would host them because my uncle had a better setup, but that's neither here or there. And at 12 or 13, trying to have the confidence to sing in front of your family is probably worse than a crowd,
Right.
in my opinion. So.
Because at least if you go and sing badly in front of a crowd, you don't have to come home to them.
Exactly. You don't have to sleep in the same house that you just sang in,
and then have to hear about like, yeah, you remember when you destroyed the microphone?
Yeah.
With your awful singing.
Right.
Anyway, what do you want for dinner?
Yeah.
Terrible singer.
You get chum.
You're just gonna get the leftovers, because that's what your singing voice is like.
Leftovers.
Anyway, so then that was I did go to one of the karaoke parties, karaoke events. And that was pretty fun. I thought that you guys were having a good time. Yeah. I wasn't gonna get up there, but I saw you guys having fun, and that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, you've been there. Jake has been there. Zach has been there too, more than once too. He's he was in choir too.
Right, yeah.
He's a good singer. In fact, my aunt, whenever we come out to visit and they are doing karaoke, she actually asks for him specifically. She's like, is he gonna come? I'm like, I don't know. I could text him. Yeah. So
you always appreciate good singers.
Yeah, I mean, he feels like integrated with the family a little bit, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I didn't really develop further until high school. I actually was a part of a band for a small amount of time with. Do you remember Mike Muniz? Him and Marcos Martinez.
I remember him too.
Yeah. I don't even know if he had a band name at the time, but I do remember going over to Marcos's place in his garage, and we would just jam out there to like Woe Is Me, Parkway Drive. Yeah, stuff like that. And like I figured out that like I can scream. And I can actually do it pretty decently if I hone in on it.
Right.
And for the next how many years is it? Anyway. For the next like I want to say like 10, 11 years, I really practice on like how to scream correctly and without hurting myself, and how to make it my own, and now I do it on Instagram for vocal covers.
Shout out your channel,
King Larry 60. That's the handle, folks. We
will definitely put that somewhere in the description
for sure,
so people can find you, because I think that even just like in general as a musician, you have a lot of potential. We talk about how long you've been playing guitar. I mean, you've been playing since high school too, right?
Yeah, since 13 is when I started picking up the guitar, and I started with like System of a Down, Metallica. Like most, I guess millennials. For us that picked up guitar in that age group, at least in my opinion. I don't know if that's true for everybody else. If it is, drop a like or something.
I think that what was it? I think that was like a lot of the core of our friendship was that you were also into metal, and the metal community, as you might not be surprised, is not big. And so when we find other metalheads, we like stick together like glue.
Yeah, literally.
Because there's just no other. There's not a lot of other people that appreciate that music. It's just true. Maybe if it was the 80s,
yeah,
and we were in the Metallica era, and when Metallica ruled the world, then it would have been probably a different story. But we didn't live in that time frame. We lived in the time frame where metal had become small again. And if you wanted to go, I just had David on recently, and we talked about the fact that metal is not is only popular really in Europe. Like if you want to go where metal is a bigger entity, you go to Europe. In America, it was short-lived. Yeah, the heavy metal era, and it's still going in Europe. So particularly like in Norway, or in like
Sweden.
Yeah. you'll hear of like the Norwegian black metal, Swedish black metal.
The scene is really big over there.
and so like that stuff is still wildly popular. In Germany, it's a big deal too.
Yeah.
So like it's just a bigger community there. It just stayed alive there. Did it come from Europe? Maybe. Like did it like spawn in Europe?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know if it did start in Europe and then transition to the States.
Because Black Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
Did it technically start with them?
I think it did start with Black Sabbath back in like the late 70s, and then it transitioned over to the States in the 80s, with Metallica and was Rush American? I don't remember.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't know if they're considered.
I am not a connoisseur of all things metal. I'm a metal fan,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely not I'm not a historian. I'm not the right person.
Yeah, I'm not the right person to ask either. So,
but anyway,
grain
it's
of salt.
popular in Europe, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
And not so much so in the U.S. And so therefore we ended up being a small group of people. And when we encountered each other, we were like, "You like metal too?" And then that was all we needed.
Literally.
And then we became friends because we were friends in more acquaintances in like middle school. And then in high school was really when we become friends. And so fast forward to, might have been like, it was sophomore year.
Yeah, I would say.
When we started to really become friends because of Jake.
Yeah.
And Jake really likes cinematography and doing short skits. And to this day, he still makes skits and is still always going to be, I think, interested in comedy to some degree.
Yeah.
And I jump in every now and again with ideas, but it's obviously not my priority, but I still do find them fun. And I think that's where we kind of our friendship fostered was in that space. Was we were doing comedy sketches and you would join in and play different characters. I think that's what made you so what's the word? So I don't want to say this word because I don't think it's the right word to say, but I don't have another one, so I'm just gonna say it. It was just more like as a character more usable. Like you just could play many different roles. Yeah. And so we could just be like, you're going to be a cop today. And you were a cop that day. And then like, okay, now you're an angry Italian guy. You're an angry Italian guy.
I could wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. And so like, you just had this ability to like play different characters. And so it made you more valuable as a character. And so we're like, okay, Larry, now you're going to play this thing. You're going to play this character today. And you would just do it.
Yep.
And that's what made it fun. And I think we enjoyed it. Those you know what I remember? The one that comes to mind is can I get some of that? When we moved in together, we did this sketch of where all three of us, me, you, and Melissa, we did this comedy sketch, which she doesn't like the camera either, and so she was kind of in the background, but she still participated, which I thought was hilarious. Yeah. Which was that we I don't know, what was the idea? Do you remember? Like
something about the poncho and the hat. You're like, we have to make a skit out of this.
Oh, that's one. That was another one. But the one where you come, like you're knocking on the door and you're like, can I get some of that? And then Melissa goes, yeah, can I get some of that? And then we just get louder until we start.
It's can I get a mushroom and sausage pizza?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, yeah, that one. And then we just go back and forth until you just can't understand what anybody's saying. They're just screaming and
unintelligible.
and that was hilarious. And I thought that they were just the process of making them is what made it fun.
Yeah,
was not even the end result. Because the end result, we look back and have a good laugh about it. But then when we think about it, it's like it was the process of making it. Yeah. And being like, okay, you're going to eventually scream. And then explaining that's what you're eventually going to do. And it's going to sound like this. Yeah. And then just going through that process. And I don't know, it was fun. Yeah. We had a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Let me ask you a question about why did you want to be a Marine?
Well, I was pretty fond of the military because my stepdad was Army, and seeing my sister's first husband also being in the military. I was like, I wonder what that is like. Like, what does that life, consist of? And when I turned 18, I was like, I would like to join the service. I do remember actually the I don't know if they're the recruiters, but when they came to the high school and they went to the cafeteria and they're like, if you do like 25 push-ups, you get a pen. I was like,
Yeah.
I want a pen. That was like
Fair.
That was it. I was like,
That's all you need.
I was like, this is pretty cool. Cool. I got a pen, and I pondered on it for a while. I was like, okay, if I do go in, do I go active? Like, do I do this? What's it gonna be like? Who do I even talk to about this kind of stuff? And I was like, nah. I put it to the wayside for 2 years, and then I had hit a semi low point, whatever you want to call it, really. I just got recently fired. I didn't really know where I was going to go in life because I'd been working in retail for those 2 years. I was like, okay, well, I thought I was supposed to move up in the world, in a relatively quick amount of time. They lied to you. And I think you had just came back from 29 Palms. And
From comm school.
Yeah, from comm school. And you were telling me about the Marine Corps and, how it worked, how you loved it, and you were really passionate about it. I was like, okay, and I'm pretty fond of the Marines as well. Let me do some research. And you gave me your recruiter's business card.
Staff Sergeant Whitty.
Yes, Staff Sergeant Whitty. He's a G.
He took care of us. I think he did what a lot of recruiters don't do, which is you always hear about the notorious a recruiter that vanishes once you sign.
Yeah.
And he wasn't that.
Yeah.
He, for long after, he did his role. He participated in his role far longer than he was obligated.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, I don't know what your experience with him was, but for me, I spent a lot of time after I came back giving back to the office because he was so present. And checked in, congratulated me when I came home.
Yeah.
Like just the stuff that, you don't hear about recruiters doing very often. You just hear the thing of like, you sign the papers and you never see him again. And that wasn't the case. I for many years, he was a recruiter after that. And I would, return as much as I could, and go to the, pulley functions when I came back and try to help them out there and
slay them the pulleys.
Yeah, and then take out all of my frustrations out on hopefuls who want to be Marines, and I'm like, I am angry today. All of you will suffer.
They had soul when they came in. They did not have soul when they left.
They will all want to quit by the end of today.
Their will to live gone.
But it really did it created that desire for me to give back. How present he was, and so I'm definitely grateful for that.
Yeah.
And so then, anyway, you decide, okay, at some point, I'm interested in the Marines, and I apparently wouldn't stop talking about it, and you were like, okay, shut up.
Not quite. That might have been a you thing.
What was that like?
Well, you went on about how boot camp was, and the combat training, and how you said it's pretty hard stuff, and so you got to take some time to think about it. I took 3 days.
No, I think I specifically told you, like, make sure if you want to do it, that you want to do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it on this sounds cool. I remember telling you that specifically.
Yeah.
Of like, if you think you want to do it because it sounds cool, don't do it. Like if you want to do it because like, okay, no matter how many times I try to convince myself not to do it, I still want to do it, then it's a little different.
Yeah, and like my whole reasoning was like I just wanted to go in and claim the title and prove to myself that I could claim the title as Marine.
You just said something that I think, this is why I think the Marine Corps advertisement team is so good, is because they know their target audience. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I like so much. When you look at the commercials, it's telling in terms of what that team that makes those videos thinks the young audience wants to see. Like, what is it what is the demographic? What's the target demographic? And they really do know. People who want to, they cater those commercials to people who they know that the people who become Marines are those that want to prove something to themselves or to others.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is. Like, those are the people. You don't become a Marine because, like, I want college benefits. Yes, it does happen, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority, the target audience is not them.
Yeah.
The target audience is people who are like, hey, have you had a rough life? Do you have something to prove? Do you think you have what it takes to become something bigger than yourself and be a part of an elite team of people, right? Like, that is the target demographic of like those people who are like, I want to be something else. Like, I want to be something higher, something better.
Yeah. And
it's not that the other branches don't do that in some capacity, shape, or form, but the Marine Corps specifically, their advertisement team knows their target audience.
Yeah.
It is those people who are like, I do not like the status quo.
Yeah.
And so what can I do to leave that, to move on to something bigger, so to speak?
Yeah. And it's also, it's a title that's with you literally forever. Like, there's ex-soldiers, ex-airmen, Navy men, whatever you want to call it. There is no ex-Marine. You are a Marine until
the day you kick rocks.
Yeah, and even past that,
Yep.
you will be known as Marine.
Right.
And
I will say that it is the Marine Corps is I've said this before. The Marine Corps is the last basic training you can go into, the last military training that you can go into without being an athlete.
Yeah.
I think that you have to be an athlete to some capacity when you start going into special forces.
Yeah.
You can't get off your couch and then go train for like a few months and then go to boot camp and then think that you're going to be special operations.
Right.
Like your body won't handle it.
Yeah.
Like, it just will break.
That's a different type of condition.
And so the Marine Corps is really the last branch that you can, it's not to say you can just get up off the couch. It's not what I'm saying. You don't need a ton of time to prepare.
Yeah.
You can meet the bare minimum requirements pretty quickly. And then once you do that, then you ship out and don't, like, that's the last branch that you can survive off sheer willpower.
Yeah.
Like, where you can will your body to do things that are beyond your comfort level if you want it bad enough. And I think that because it's a branch that recruits people who genuinely want to be Marines and not, I just want to be in a branch so that I can get A, B, and C. Like, I don't want something in return. I want to be a Marine.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the willpower comes from, and why I think that our attrition rate could be lower, because so many people from all walks of life that maybe aren't athletes come in and have to put their bodies through really stressful situations. I mean, let's put your situation for an example. You ended up breaking your ankle.
I did. Training day 4, which is like, it's not very good. There's like 2 weeks of like administration before you even begin training day. So I'd already been in San Diego for at that point 18 days, and on the 18th day my ankle was like, oh, sorry.
Yep.
And it broke. So it was a lightning bolt fracture in my right tibia. So,
and but before we go too much further into that, I want to know what was your experience like before you went to boot camp? When you decided you wanted to do it, you came back, 3 days went by, you thought about it, and you came back, you said, I want to do it. What was your experience like then with us?
Hell.
Please explain.
I mean, honestly, like, it's like prep school for boot camp. That's the best way to like summarize it. But in detail, it was knowing your facing movements, knowing how to execute in order, in, a timely fashion. And by timely, I mean you have 10, not actual seconds, but 10 seconds in this guy's time, not your time. And, learning history about the Marine Corps and, citing knowledge and that's just the basic stuff right there. I think the bigger thing that was the takeaway was like, do you actually have willpower? Do you understand how willpower works at a basic fundamental level, and can you implement it? And that's what Josh here and Carl decided to do, is test my willpower in hell, unfortunately.
I did it. Just be honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Did it help?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that it set the precedent to know what to expect once I got there. And I mean, it did suck that I hurt myself on training day 4, but the reason for that was so that I could get even more knowledge while I was recovering. So
do you want to tell the story about what it was like when we were preparing you?
Basically, I would get off work, and my work was the Victoria's Secret in that mall.
I still don't understand how they let you in that facility.
So, okay, I do have to sidetrack for a small segment. My cousin at the time was a manager during the holiday season, and she was able to get me in my, I think, senior year of high school, because you had to be 18 to work at the mall. So she got me in for the holiday season. My first day of work was Black Friday. That's right.
Nice.
What the fuck, Victoria's Secret. And then after the kind of the temporary amount of time, they're like, hey, you did really well, and we want you to work here full time. I said, okay. And the rest was history, as they say. But aside from that, I'd get off work, and then the Denny's that was in the same vicinity, just like across from the mall parking lot, was the hangout spot for much of the friend group, including Carl and Josh. And I would go there, and they were like on a dime. When it was time to train, and they texted me, get your ass over here. It's time to train. It was like, okay, aye, sir, yes, sir, no, sir. And I get there, and then be hazed for like an hour or two.
Absolutely, it was hazing.
Yeah, absolute hazing. So
and by the way, too, it was so, like, we were so committed to that, to making sure that we try to recreate what you would experience. We were so into making sure that was going to happen that we did not care. In that time frame, like we genuinely believed that we could, like, this is our world, and no one has an access to it from the outside.
Yeah, and
so we didn't care who heard it. We didn't care who saw what was going on, because we would meet up at night, and So we would go so that we had the parking lot clear, because we wanted to make sure, like, there weren't going to be cars,
like
driving through.
Yeah.
And so, we attracted the attention of like the patrons that were, in at Denny's, from all the, I guess, the screaming and running back and forth.
Yeah. The activities.
Yeah.
If you will.
And so, they called the police. Somebody called the police.
Somebody called the cops.
And they show up, and this happened to us at least twice. I think it was 3 total.
I think 3 total.
But like the main ones I remember were like the main ones that like stood out to me were the 2. The first time, obviously they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we always took this role. Carl always said, "I'm going to deal with it."
Yeah.
And so I would sit back, and he was like, "I'm going to deal with it." And so he went over there, and just super bold, like, did not care. was like, hey, you want to see something interesting? Run that way, and in front of the police.
It's like show and tell.
Yeah,
cops.
like run in front of the police, and they laughed.
Yeah.
Like they thought it was funny, and they were like, all right, good luck. And so then they took off, right? And then Anthony wants to do it, and so you had just come home.
Yeah.
And so now it's us three, and Anthony wants to go, and so he went through the gauntlet.
Yep.
And the cops get called again, and
unsurprisingly,
and the cops get called again, and I have a photo of it. Maybe we'll use it.
Yeah.
But there's a picture of Anthony at attention with the headlights of the police car shine directly on him, and he's turned away from them because he was originally facing the police when they showed up, like at attention. And again, Carl was like, hey, watch this. He was like, so someone said, look at me, turn around. And he turns around in the rain, just downpouring. And he was like, you guys are having too much fun. Anyway, have a good night or whatever. And they leave. And, oh, you know what he said at first? He shows up, got another one? And we're like, yep. And that's when he goes, you want to see something cool? And he tells Anthony to turn around, and he about faces right in front of him. And that's the picture is he just turned away from the police car. And so, those memories are, I look at them fondly. I think back and go, man, we really didn't care about rules. Like, to some degree we did, right? Like, we weren't going to hurt any, like, at least not purposely hurt anybody or not hurt anybody, but
safety is considered.
It's considered. It's talked about briefly, but like, we just genuinely believe this is our world and no one touches us here. Like, we're no one can from the outside prohibit this. And so we acted that way, and I think that it did help because the police kind of was like, oh, well, we're not going to get involved, it's not our thing. And that's what happened. And so we genuinely like walked around with that level of confidence where it's like, we run this, like, this is our operation. Like, no one has a say here. And that also helped, I think, in us being able to prepare you to recreate as much of the world that you were going to see as possible. And it, when you did get hurt, by the way, I was pretty concerned because I sent you a letter in boot camp when you first got there, and just to check in on you, and I didn't get one back from you until you got hurt. And you're like, I'm an MRP. I'm like, oh no. And I worried because that was my fear when I was in boot camp, was I don't want to get dropped. And this is where you have an edge, right? This is where I think you did better than I would have done in that situation, which was that, like, for me, my biggest fear, I think it would have destroyed my motivation to be there if I would have gotten dropped for getting hurt. You were there 6 months.
Yeah, it was either you leave and you re-enlist in 6 months, or you go to MRP and you continue. And the immediate fear and like regret that I could think of was like, I go home and I say, hey mom, hey dad, I'm not a Marine. Or I suck it up and I come home a Marine. And I was like, that's my end goal. Like, I don't care if I'm here for a year, until my ankle heals. Like, I'm coming out as a Marine. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And here we are. That's something I have to commend about your character, in that you, in those six months you were there, like, you did not lose spirit. Like, that was something, maybe, I don't know, maybe you could talk about that more, what that experience was like. I got pretty low at some point. I will say, I mean, MRP is like purgatory. If the MCRD, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, is hell, MRP is the purgatory, and that is 100% factual. That's not an opinion. Because, I mean, you have all these recruits that are just waiting to go back to their platoons or a new platoon and, finish their training. And some of them got dropped to MRP during the Crucible, and now they have to recover. they have to wait until a platoon is ready to take the Crucible and then get, cycled back in. So it's a lot of like the same thing like every day for MRP. Morning chow, come back, morning cleanup, then some free time, then afternoon chow, afternoon cleanup, free time, like evening chow, evening cleanup, and free time again. So there's too much downtime, and depending on your injury, it limits you to what you can do aside from go to appointments. And in my case, I had both a cast, a boot cast, and then also crutches for probably the first month and a half, and then they eventually got me off crutches. And the waiting game, as I like to call it, is what can kill your psyche while you're in there. A lot of recruits wanted to go home after a while, and what do? They say that they are having suicidal tendencies, and there's not much else that the Marine Corps can do other than go, well, either get them some mental help or send them back home. And most of the time they just wanted to go home. So that's what they did. And I mean, I got pretty close because sometimes you just have your thoughts to yourself, especially at night, and the only things that you have are chow, cleanup, free time, which is read a book, and that's pretty much it.
Did you ever come up with a plan to do it?
I don't think I got that far, to be completely honest. Mostly because like my limitations with my injury was like, okay, well, I can't really I don't know, jump off the second story if I really wanted to. So I was like, well, shit.
Yeah.
My logical brain, portion of my brain, kind of took over and was like, yeah, it's probably not going to happen. So we should just dump this idea. Okay.
Right. And so like, yeah, when I got that letter from you that you were in MRP, like I obviously didn't want you to know that I was like worried. I remember sending you a letter of telling you like, don't let this like demotivate you. Like you're gonna heal. You're gonna get back. Don't let this sink you.
Yeah.
And so I remember sending you a letter, something like that. And it just, dude, like you got through it. I got to give you credit, man. I don't know that I would have been able to, mentally to get through, an injury that lasts the length of boot camp.
I think what made it worse was that the day that I got injured is the day that I got cycled back in. They don't cycle you back in from like the day you go to MRP. It's when you get injured,
right,
or whatever illness it is. So training day 4 was where I had to restart,
right,
after I had done the recovery process. I was like, oh geez, I forgot about this portion.
Right. And so then what was it like going back? Were you worried you were going to break it again? Like how did it?
Not really, because they kept taking they took a second x-ray about the midway point of recovery, and they said, the fracture is healing, and they do function checks, and they document everything. So I wasn't necessarily worried that it was going to break again. It more than likely probably won't break again until I'm, I don't know, maybe in my 70s, if that even happens. So I wasn't really worried about it. I was worried about like mobility for like hiking, which that's more because I'm flat-footed than my broken ankle. But it was a factor to worry about at the time. So yeah, aside from that, it was pretty okay.
Hardest part of boot camp?
If I didn't go to MRP, I would say probably that last hike, that 15K, because it's on the sand, and I fell over like a turtle more than once.
The hikes were my kryptonite. I did not have strong legs.
Yeah.
And so the hikes killed me every time. And that one tested my will. That was like the most my will was tested was during the hikes.
Yeah.
Because of the ascent up, and the angle was ridiculous at some parts of that hill. Because it's technically, did you know that the Reaper is not a mountain? I used to think it was a mountain. It is a very tall hill. It is actually technically 200 feet shy of being a mountain.
Really?
It's pretty close.
Well, just add some more dirt on it, I guess.
Yeah, but add some dirt. Make it a mountain because it feels like it.
Yeah, for real.
I think it's 700 or 800 feet. Well, it has to be like around 800 if you need 200 more because it's 1,000.
Yeah.
1,000 is what you need for it to be classified a mountain.
That's interesting. Okay.
And so it just falls short of a mountain.
Headquarters Marine Corps. Can you make that happen?
Yeah.
For the next generation?
Yeah, let's add some more, please. So they can call it a mountain.
Yeah, just like heli the dirt on top of it.
And then I'll just take all the credit and be like, I climbed that mountain.
Yeah.
But it was a hill at the time.
But
They don't have to know that.
Don't call it the Reaper anymore. Just call it the Lopez.
Oh, yeah. I renamed it.
Yeah.
It's me now. It's my face at the top.
Yeah.
But
like carved out.
Yeah. So we get through your injury and you graduate. What was the feeling for you? Or at least when you get to the top of the Reaper?
When I got to the top and like I got my EGA, I fucking bawled my eyes out.
Dude, I wept.
Yeah.
I did not tear up. I did not. It was not. I ugly cried.
Literally, like
when they had us.
Oh, thank you.
Like I couldn't believe it. Like
literally.
So surreal. What was that moment for you?
I mean, it just like all the hard work that I put into to get to that point was just like, wow, I did what I wanted to do and I achieved my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, what do I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
How do I go further? Now that I've gained this, how do I give back to the Marine Corps? Now that they've given me the brain fart title.
Mm-hmm. Earning that and coming home, like, especially after the injury.
Yes.
What a comeback. Like, that's why I said, like, I got to give you more credit there because I don't know how I would have fared if I would have gotten injured and I had to tell my family, sorry that you bought your tickets already. But you're going to have to buy another set if you want to come back.
Which is an interesting theme. Now that I like look back throughout like my life now, like you could probably call me the comeback like connoisseur in some sort of way. Like I came back from juvie school and people were like, "Oh, where'd you go?"
Right.
I come back from boot camp after 6 months and everyone's just like, "Where'd you go?" And even now it's been 6 years, 6 years. And I came back to Illinois to visit. Right. So it's an interesting viewpoint.
I think that's what's built your character of at least not seeming phased. And that's not to say that you didn't have experiences where you're like, I kind of want to quit, because everybody kind of goes through that. I had that too at some point. Not necessarily like how, to be honest with you, there was never I think I want to quit. There was how am I going to get through that?
Yeah.
Like that's what it was for me. It was like, how am I going to get through that thing? Mm-hmm. And that's more so what my thought process was. Not how can I quit? Like, how can I get out of this? Yeah. It was like, how am I going to get through that?
Right.
And I think that you have a great deal of that, of just the being able to weather storms. And I think that deserves credit, that you were able to get through. You went through boot camp for twice the amount of time. Like, I don't know. Carl and I talked about it often, where it's like, dude, if I had to be in boot camp 6 months, I wouldn't have done it. Yeah. and it's true. It's worth mentioning. So
yeah, appreciate that. There are some guys that have done it way longer.
I'm sure, but 6 months is not easy.
Yeah.
So that's worth mentioning. Let's fast forward. We're just to wrap things up here. A lot of stuff has happened. You are engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is? How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. I've got a steady, stable job. I have a lovely fiance, and we're about to close on a house soon. So,
so proud of you.
Thanks.
You've done a lot for yourself in a short period of time since we talked, and I think that is again a testament to your character about being able to come back from bad situations. And this is something that you dealt with, moving into a different place and that not working out, and having a previous relationship that not working out, and finally getting to a point where it's like, this is going to work out.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, very commendable. I think that is, again, a testament to your character. So congratulations. You deserve it.
I appreciate that.
How are you feeling? Are you excited?
Yeah. There's a lot of emotions going on. There's a little bit of nervousness, the first time owning a home, and excitement. Like, there's so much I can do with the home, like customize it, and like make even better additions to it and stuff like that. So I'm really excited because it'll be another avenue of creativity for me too. Because I like to get into woodworking and see, like, okay, what can I make to make the house better? So it'll be pretty cool.
I will be looking forward to seeing that chapter unravel, and I will make I will say that I give you my word that I will check in with you more often than I've had in the past. And I do have some. Is there anything you want to share, first of all, before I start asking the final questions that I have? Is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience? Something you didn't talk about, something maybe you want to make sure you mention that comes to mind?
Do you know Julie Chen Moonves from Big Brother?
No, I don't.
She has a saying, because she's the host. She's been the host for like over 20 years. Love one another. And I think that's something that we could all take a little tip from. So.
3 final questions for you, my friend.
Sure.
First, you mentioned it briefly, but is there anything else that you want people to follow you on? Where can we find you? Where can we follow you, your work, anything?
My main social media outlet is King Larry 60 on Instagram. That's where you'll find my vocal covers. I've done guitar covers as well on there. I'll try to be posting more often after I buy this house, because I won't be living in an apartment.
Awesome. And have you discovered purpose? And if not, what do you think it might be?
I have definitely discovered purpose, in more than one occasion as well. First the Marine Corps, then my love life, and now my passion for information technology and pursuing that avenue.
If you could speak to your childhood self, what would you say?
Read a book.
Try to learn a little more, huh?
Yeah.
Larry, it's been very, very nice talking to you for old time's sake. I hope that we get to do this more, make it a tradition, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I know we'll have you on. We'll check in with you from time to time.
Awesome.
And we'll talk soon.
I look forward to it.
Out.